If you believe every child deserves to be heard and protected, please like this video and comment below. Your support helps us share stories that matter and raise awareness about child safety. An 8-year-old girl made a hand signal in a crowded restaurant that most people missed. But 5 bikers saw it, and what they did next saved her life and exposed a nightmare hidden in plain sight. But no one imagined what would come next. Tommy Bear Sullivan had been a member of the Veterans MC for 12 years, ever since he'd returned from his 3rd deployment in Afghanistan with medals, scars, and PTSD that made civilian life feel like walking through a minefield. The motorcycle club, made up entirely of military veterans, had saved his life in ways the VA hospital couldn't. On this Sunday evening in Nashville, Tennessee, Bear and 4 brothers, Rick Hawk Martinez, James Doc Thompson, Carl Wrench Davidson, and Mike Preacher Williams, had stopped at Rosie's family restaurant after a charity ride benefiting homeless veterans. They were tired, hungry, and looking forward to burgers and beer. Rosie's was classic family restaurant. Red vinyl booths, laminated menus, jukebox playing country music, walls covered with photos of local sports teams. It was crowded on Sunday nights, filled with families enjoying the weekly special, all-you-can-eat fried chicken. The 5 bikers took a booth near the back, their leather vests drawing the usual mix of curious glances and nervous stares. People saw the patches, the tattoos, and made assumptions. Most didn't know that Hawk had been a Marine sniper. Doc had been an Army medic. Wrench had defused bombs for the Navy, and Preacher had been an Air Force chaplain. They'd all served. They'd all sacrificed. Bear was studying the menu when he noticed the family 3 booths away. A woman in her mid-30s, blonde and thin, exhausted looking. A man beside her, early 40s, with slicked back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And a little girl, maybe 8, with dark hair pulled into a tight ponytail and enormous brown eyes that seemed too old for her face. Something about the dynamic felt wrong. Bear couldn't pinpoint it initially. Just a feeling, an instinct honed by years of identifying threats. He watched as the man leaned close to the little girl and said something. The girl's entire body tensed. Her face went blank, carefully neutral. The woman looked away. "You seeing this?" Bear murmured to Hawk. Hawk glanced over. "The family? Yeah, something's off. Look at the kid's body language. She's terrified." Doc joined the observation. "The mother's scared too. See how she won't make eye contact with the man?" Classic abuse dynamic. They watched as the waitress approached to take the family's order. The man ordered for everyone, not asking what the girl or woman wanted. When the waitress asked the little girl directly what she'd like to drink, the man answered before she could speak. "She'll have water. She's not thirsty anyway." The little girl's eyes flickered with something, frustration, maybe anger, definitely fear, before going blank again. She was good at hiding emotions. Too good. That took practice. That took survival. Bear felt his gut tighten. He'd seen this before, in villages in Afghanistan where women and children lived under control of violent men. The same blank faces, the same careful neutrality, the same terror behind practiced masks. "We should do something," Wrench said quietly. "Do what?" Preacher challenged. "We can't just accuse someone based on a feeling. Sometimes feelings are proof," Bear countered. "I've kept my team alive in combat by trusting feelings like this." They continued watching as the family's food arrived. The man took chicken from the girl's plate without asking, then criticized how she was holding her fork. The girl's hands trembled. The mother stared at her plate, eating mechanically. Then it happened. The little girl looked up, scanning the restaurant. Her eyes landed on the Veterans MC table. She stared at them for a long moment, these 5 rough-looking men in leather vests. And then she did something that made Bear's heart stop. She raised her hand slowly, like tucking hair behind her ear, palm open. Then she folded her thumb into her palm, then closed her fingers over it, a fist with the thumb trapped inside. Bear recognized it immediately. The signal, the viral hand gesture that had spread across social media, taught in schools, the violence at home signal, a silent way to ask for help when you couldn't speak, when the danger was right next to you. "Holy shit," Hawk breathed. "Did she just—" "Yeah," Bear said, voice tight. "She did." The little girl held Bear's gaze for 3 seconds, then dropped her hand and looked at her plate. The man beside her hadn't noticed. The mother hadn't noticed. The busy restaurant hadn't noticed. But 5 veterans trained to notice everything had seen it. And now they had to decide what to do. "We need to act," Doc said immediately. "That's a distress signal. We can't just grab her and run," Wrench pointed out. "That man's presumably her guardian. Legally, we'd be kidnappers. So what do we do?" Preacher asked. Call police? And say what? Hawk challenged. We saw a hand gesture? By the time police arrive, that family will be gone. Bear's mind raced, planning like he used to plan missions. They needed more information. They needed to confirm before acting. But they couldn't let that family leave without knowing the girl was safe. I'm going to the bathroom, Bear announced, which happens to take me past their table. As Bear walked past the family's booth, he moved slowly, observing. The man had his hand on the girl's shoulder, grip too tight, fingers pressing into her small frame in a way that had to hurt. The mother stared at her phone, disconnected, and the girl was barely breathing, sitting perfectly still. Bear caught the girl's eye as he passed. She looked at him with desperate hope, silently begging him to understand, to help. In the bathroom, Bear called his chapter president, Marcus Steele Williams. Prez, we got a situation, he explained quickly. The family, the girl's signal, the clear signs of abuse. Marcus was quiet. You trust your gut on this? Absolutely. Then here's what you Bear returned with a plan. Marcus had connected him with Laura Chen, a social worker who was also a friend of the veteran's MC. She was on her way to the restaurant and would arrive in approximately 15 minutes. We need to keep that family here until Laura arrives, Bear explained to his brothers. She can assess the situation professionally. How do we keep them here without it being obvious? Doc asked. Bear thought fast. Wrench, you're going to accidentally bump their table, knock over drinks, apologize profusely, offer to pay for their meal, create enough delay that they're still here when Laura arrives. Wrench stood, waited for the right moment, then executed perfectly. As he walked past the family's booth, he stumbled and his elbow caught their table. Water glasses toppled, spilling across the table and into the man's lap. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Wrench exclaimed, grabbing napkins. Let me help clean this up. The man's face flushed with anger, but he was in public surrounded by witnesses. He forced a smile. It's fine. Accidents happen. No, please let me make this right. Let me pay for your meal. Wrench flagged the waitress. Whatever this family's tab is, put it on mine, and bring fresh drinks, please. The situation created exactly the delay needed. The waitress cleaned up, brought new drinks, reassured them their meals were complimentary. The man couldn't gracefully leave. They were stuck for at least another 10 minutes. Bear watched the little girl during this chaos. She was observing everything with sharp intelligence, clearly understanding that the accident wasn't really an accident. When Wrench returned to their table, she caught Bear's eye and gave the tiniest nod. Thank you. Laura Chen arrived 12 minutes later, walking into Rosie's with confident stride. She was 42, a former Army psychiatric nurse who'd transitioned to social work. She wore civilian clothes, jeans and a blazer, nothing that screamed authority figure. Bear met her near the entrance, speaking quietly. The family's in booth 7. Little girl, approximately 8 years old, gave the distress signal. Man with them has controlling body language. Woman appears intimidated. Laura nodded. I'm going to approach them. You and your team stay ready in case this goes sideways. She walked to the family's booth with a warm smile. Hi there. I'm Laura Chen with Tennessee Child Protective Services. I'm actually here on a routine follow-up with another family, but I noticed your daughter. What's her name? The man's expression hardened immediately. Why do you need to know? Oh, I don't need to know anything, Laura said, keeping her tone light. I was just being friendly. But actually, since I'm here, would you mind if I asked your daughter a few questions? We're conducting a survey about children's experiences in restaurants. It'll take just 2 minutes. It was brilliant. Laura had given them a plausible reason while putting the man in a position where refusing would look suspicious. The mother looked nervously at the man, waiting for his decision. We're actually just finishing up, the man said, signaling for the check. This won't take long at all, Laura persisted, unless there's a reason you don't want your daughter answering a few simple questions about her meal. The implicit challenge hung in the air. The man knew refusing would draw attention, raise questions. He was trapped. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. 2 minutes. Laura slid into the booth next to the little girl, creating physical space between the child and the man. What's your name, sweetheart? Mia, the girl whispered. That's a beautiful name. Mia, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to know you can answer honestly. Nobody's going to be upset with you, okay? Mia glanced at the man. Her stepfather, Laura, was now certain, and the fear in her eyes was unmistakable. Laura adjusted her approach. Actually, these questions work better in private. Would it be okay if Mia and I stepped over to that empty booth for just a minute? She can answer questions right here, the man said firmly. Sir, I understand your concern, but our protocol requires individual interviews. It's standard procedure. 2 minutes and she'll be right back. The man's jaw tightened. He was losing control. The mother looked like she wanted to protest but didn't dare. "Mia," Laura said gently, "would you like to come talk to me for a minute?" Mia looked at Laura with hope and terror warring in her expression. Then she looked at the man, clearly waiting for permission. "Go ahead," he said, his voice carrying unmistakable threat. "Answer the nice lady's questions. Honestly." The emphasis on honestly was clearly a warning. Everyone understood it. Mia slid out and followed Laura to an empty table near the window, out of the man's reach but still visible. Bear and his brothers positioned themselves strategically, close enough to intervene if needed. Laura sat across from Mia. "Mia, I need to be honest with you. I'm not really here doing a survey. I'm here because some people at that table over there saw you make a hand signal, a signal that means you need help. Do you know what signal I'm talking about?" Mia's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "Are you in danger, Mia?" Another nod, smaller. "Is that man your father?" "Stepfather," Mia whispered. "Derek. Does Derek hurt you?" Mia's tears spilled over. "I'm not supposed to tell. He said if I tell, he'll hurt Mom worse. He said nobody would believe me anyway because he's a police officer and I'm just a kid." Bear, watching from a distance, saw Mia break down and saw Derek start to rise. Without thinking, Bear stood and moved to intercept, positioning himself between Derek and Laura's table. "Excuse me, friend," Bear said pleasantly, though his 6'3" frame made it clear this was not a request. "Why don't you let the lady finish her conversation?" Derek's face flushed. "That's my daughter. I have a right—" "Stepdaughter," Bear corrected. "And the social worker has a right to conduct her interview without interference." Derek's eyes narrowed. "How did you know I'm a police officer?" "Lucky guess," Bear said mildly. "Now why don't you sit back down and let the professionals handle this?" The standoff between Bear and Derek drew attention. The restaurant manager approached nervously. "Gentlemen, is there a problem?" "No problem," Laura called out, standing. She'd finished her brief conversation with Mia and had heard enough to act. She walked over, placing herself between Bear and Derek. "I'm Laura Chen, Tennessee Child Protective Services. I've just conducted a preliminary interview with this child, and I have reasonable suspicion of abuse. I'm taking emergency protective custody of Mia Carter, effective immediately." Derek's face went from red to purple. "Like hell you are. You can't just take someone's kid based on a 5-minute conversation." "Actually, I can, and I am," Laura said calmly. "Tennessee law allows CPS to take emergency custody when a child is in imminent danger. Based on my interview with Mia and my professional assessment, I believe she's in imminent danger." "I am law enforcement," Derek shouted. Other diners were staring, some pulling out phones. "Then you know I'm within my legal rights," Laura said. "Mia is coming with me. Mrs. Carter, you have the right to accompany your daughter or to stay. What would you like to do?" Jennifer Carter looked between Derek and Mia, paralyzed by indecision. Years of manipulation and fear warred with maternal instinct. "Mom," Mia said quietly, walking to stand beside Laura. "Please, I can't go back with him." Something in Jennifer broke. She stood on shaking legs. "I'm coming with Mia." Derek grabbed Jennifer's arm. "You're not going anywhere." "Sit down!" Bear's hand closed around Derek's wrist, applying pressure to force him to release Jennifer. "Sir, I'm going to need you to take your hands off her, right now." Derek swung at Bear with his free hand. Bear blocked it easily, his combat training making Derek's attack look amateurish. Hawk and Doc were beside Bear instantly, forming a wall between Derek and the females. "Everyone stay calm," Preacher said. "Social Services is removing a child from a dangerous situation. Please give them space." Laura moved quickly, guiding Mia and Jennifer toward the exit. "My car is out front, let's go." Derek tried to follow, but the 5 veterans formed a barrier. "You don't want to do this," Wrench said quietly. "You're outnumbered. You've already committed assault in front of witnesses." "I'm pressing charges," Derek snarled. "Against all of you. Assault, kidnapping." "Your stepdaughter made a recognized distress signal," Hawk interrupted. "Multiple witnesses saw it. A licensed social worker conducted an interview and determined emergency removal was necessary. You attacked first. We defended. And this entire scene was recorded by at least 6 phones." Derek looked around wildly and realized Hawk was right. Several diners were filming. The restaurant manager was on the phone with police. Derek, who'd been so confident in his power, suddenly realized he'd lost both. Laura got Mia and Jennifer into her car and drove away as police arrived. Bear and his brothers waited calmly, hands visible, posture non-threatening. When officers approached, Bear explained clearly. Child gave distress signal, social worker was called, emergency custody was taken, stepfather became violent. The responding officers took statements from multiple witnesses. The story was consistent. Derek had been controlling and aggressive. The little girl had clearly been afraid. The bikers had only intervened to protect the social worker and family. One officer pulled Bear aside. "You Tommy Sullivan?" "Yeah. I'm Officer Martinez. My brother served with you in Afghanistan. He said you saved his life. Just did my job." "Well, you did your job again tonight. I know Derek Hammond. He's dirty. We've suspected it, but couldn't prove anything. If that kid's willing to testify, it might open doors." After giving statements, the veterans' MC members were free to go. They gathered in the parking lot, adrenaline fading. "Think she'll be okay?" Doc asked. "Depends on what happens next," Bear said. "If her mother stands by her, if the system works, if Derek doesn't manipulate his way out, then yeah, she's got a shot." Bear's phone rang. "Laura Chen. Just wanted to update you. Mia's at a crisis center now, being evaluated. Her mother is with her and seems genuinely remorseful. Mia told us Derek's been abusing her for 2 years, since he married her mother. Physical abuse, emotional abuse, isolation tactics. Classic pattern. What happens to Derek? CPS has filed for emergency removal. A judge will hear the case tomorrow." "If Mia's medical exam shows evidence of abuse, and I suspect it will, Derek won't get near her again. And I've contacted a detective who specializes in police misconduct." "Good," Bear said. "Keep us updated?" "Absolutely. And Bear, thank you. Most people would have looked away. You didn't." After hanging up, Bear shared the update with his brothers. They stood in the parking lot, 5 veterans who'd been trained to fight wars, who'd come home to fight different battles. "Beer?" Hawk suggested. "Yeah," Bear agreed. "Beer sounds good." They rode back to the clubhouse, each processing what had happened. They'd gone to dinner expecting nothing more than fried chicken. Instead, they'd witnessed a child's silent cry for help and had the training to understand it. They'd intervened when most would have looked away. It was, Bear reflected as he rode through the Nashville night, exactly why the Veterans MC existed. They'd fought for their country overseas. Now they fought for their community at home. Different battles, same mission, protect those who can't protect themselves. And if a little girl named Mia could sleep safely tonight without fear, then maybe all the nightmares and PTSD and scars were worth it. Because they'd been trained to recognize threats, and tonight they'd used that training to save someone who desperately needed saving. That was enough. That would always be enough. The following morning, Bear woke to his phone ringing at 7 a.m. Laura Chen's name flashed on the screen. "Morning," Bear answered groggily. "Bear, we need to talk. Can you come to the CPS office? And bring your brothers if they're available. Something's developed." An hour later, the 5 veterans MC members sat in Laura's office. Laura looked exhausted, like she'd been up all night. "Mia's medical exam confirmed extensive abuse," Laura began. "Bruises in various stages of healing. Old fractures that healed improperly. Signs of chronic malnutrition. She's been suffering for at least 2 years." Bear felt rage building. "Where's Derek now?" "Arrested last night on assault charges from the restaurant. But here's where it gets complicated. This morning, Jennifer Carter came forward with information. Derek's abuse wasn't just domestic. He's part of something bigger." Laura pulled out a thick folder. "Jennifer says Derek belongs to an online group, predators who share tactics for controlling families, avoiding detection, and manipulating the system. They trade advice on grooming children, isolating mothers, using authority positions to avoid accountability." Doc leaned forward. "How many are we talking about?" "Jennifer gave us names of 3 men Derek mentioned. We've started investigating, and each one has a similar profile. Authority figure, married into families with vulnerable children, no prior record. They're careful, methodical." Hawk's jaw tightened. "So Derek wasn't acting alone. This is organized." "Exactly. One of the men Jennifer named is a judge. Another is a school principal. These are people in positions of power who've weaponized that power to abuse children and silence families." Bear stood, pacing. "What do you need from us?" "The FBI is taking over the investigation. They want to interview you about what you observed, establish timeline, document Derek's behavior. But more importantly, they want to understand how you recognize the signal. They're considering implementing training for law enforcement and social workers." "We'll do whatever helps," Preacher said. "If what we saw can help train people to save other kids, we're in." Laura smiled tiredly. "I knew you'd say that." "The FBI agent handling the case is Sarah Mitchell. She's expecting you at noon. At noon, they met Special Agent Sarah Mitchell at the FBI field office. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, and got straight to business. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Your intervention last night potentially broke open a case we've been trying to crack for 18 months. We've had suspicions about an organized network of child abusers using online forums to coordinate, but we couldn't identify members or prove coordination. Jennifer Carter's testimony changed that. She pulled up a screen showing a dark web forum. This is where they operate. Encrypted, anonymous. They call themselves the Sanctuary. They share tactics, warn each other about investigations, coordinate relocating to new communities when one area gets risky. Bear felt sick. How long has this been going on? We've traced activity back 7 years, potentially dozens of victims across multiple states. The 3 names Jennifer gave us are just the beginning. Agent Mitchell turned to them. I need to understand exactly what you saw last night. Every detail. For the next 2 hours, the 5 veterans walked through the evening in meticulous detail. Bear described Mia's body language. Doc explained the family dynamic. Hawk detailed the hand signal and why it registered as significant. Agent Mitchell took extensive notes. You gentlemen have combat experience. You're trained to read situations quickly, identify threats. Most civilians don't have that training. So train them, Bear said. Make it mandatory training for teachers, social workers, restaurant staff. Make the signal so widely known that kids know someone will recognize it. That's exactly what we're proposing, Agent Mitchell said, using this case as the catalyst. But we need your help. Would you be willing to participate in training programs? Share your story? The 5 veterans exchanged glances. We're in, Bear said, and his brothers nodded agreement. Over the following weeks, the case exploded. The FBI's investigation uncovered 12 members of the Sanctuary across 6 states. 4 were arrested immediately. Others fled, but were being tracked. The media coverage was extensive. National news picked up the story of how 5 bikers had recognized a child's silent signal and exposed an organized predation network. Mia and Jennifer were placed in protective custody while the investigation continued. Laura kept the veterans MC updated on Mia's progress. She's remarkably resilient, Laura told Bear. Therapy's helping. She started smiling again, and she keeps asking about you, the bikers who saved her. She wants to thank you. We were just doing what anyone should do, Bear protested. But most don't. You did. That matters to her. 3 months after the restaurant incident, Mia and Jennifer moved into a new apartment in a different part of Nashville. Derek was in jail awaiting trial on multiple charges. His police career was over. His power was gone. Jennifer had filed for divorce and was working with prosecutors to build the case against not just Derek, but the entire network. She'd found strength she didn't know she had. The veterans MC received an invitation to visit Mia at her new home. Laura arranged it carefully, everything on Mia's terms. On a Saturday afternoon, Bear, Hawk, Doc, Wrench, and Preacher rode to the apartment complex. They debated what to bring and settled on books. Doc's wife had suggested it. Books are safe. They're escapes. They're possibilities. Jennifer answered the door, and the transformation was remarkable. The exhausted, frightened woman from the restaurant had been replaced by someone who stood straighter, smiled easier, looked alive. Thank you for coming, Jennifer said. Mia's been excited all week. Mia appeared from her bedroom wearing jeans and a t-shirt, her hair in a ponytail. She looked like a normal 8-year-old now, a little shy but not terrified, not broken. You came, Mia said, smiling. Of course we came, Bear said gently, kneeling to her level. We've been wanting to see how you're doing. I'm good, Mia said. I'm in a new school. I have friends now, and I'm not scared anymore. That's really good, Mia. We're proud of you. I wanted to say thank you, Mia continued, her voice stronger, for seeing me. Everyone else looked away, but you saw me. You understood my signal. You saved me. Doc handed her a bag of books. We brought you something. They're about brave people who faced hard things and came through stronger. Kind of like you. Mia's eyes lit up. I love reading, thank you. They spent an hour at the apartment. Mia showed them her room, painted pink, filled with stuffed animals and art supplies. She was taking art therapy and found drawing helped her process what had happened. Jennifer made coffee and told them about the therapy, the legal proceedings, the slow process of rebuilding. I failed her, Jennifer said quietly when Mia was out of earshot. I was so beaten down by Derek that I couldn't see what he was doing to my daughter. You're protecting her now, Hawk said. That's what matters. You found strength to leave, to testify, to rebuild. That takes courage, too. Before they left, Mia asked if she could hug them. One by one, 5 large bikers carefully hugged a small girl who'd survived hell. When Mia hugged Bear, she whispered, "Thank you for seeing my signal. I didn't think anyone would notice." "We'll always notice," Bear promised. "And if you ever need anything, you call us. You're family now." As they rode away, Bear felt something shift inside him. For years, he'd carried guilt about lives he couldn't save in Afghanistan. But today, he'd seen proof that sometimes you could save someone. Sometimes paying attention and caring was enough. The case against the sanctuary moved forward. The FBI had identified 18 members total. 12 were arrested. 6 remained at large but were being actively pursued. The Veterans MC became advocates for child safety awareness. They partnered with schools and community organizations to teach the hand signal. They shared Mia's story, with her permission, to illustrate why awareness mattered. Bear did interviews with local news. Most people see something wrong and convince themselves it's not their business. We're trained to trust our instincts. When we saw that little girl make the distress signal, we knew we had to act. The story resonated. The hand signal became more widely known. Schools implemented mandatory training. Restaurant chains added posters explaining the signal. The visibility potentially saved lives. 6 months after the rescue, Agent Mitchell called Bear. "We arrested the last 2 members of the sanctuary. It's over. The network's dismantled. Evidence from this case is being used to train law enforcement nationwide." "How many victims have come forward?" Bear asked. 43 children across 6 states. All are now in safe situations, receiving therapy, starting to heal. Several mothers have left abusive situations, inspired by Jennifer Carter's courage. You started something bigger than you realize. 1 year after the restaurant incident, the Veterans MC hosted a fundraiser for child advocacy centers across Tennessee. The event drew hundreds of people: bikers, community members, families, and survivors. Mia and Jennifer attended as special guests. Mia was 9 now, taller, more confident. She'd asked if she could speak at the event. When Mia took the microphone, the crowd quieted. This small girl who'd suffered so much stood before hundreds and told her story. "A year ago, I was scared all the time," Mia began. "Someone was hurting me and I couldn't tell anyone because I was afraid. But I learned about a hand signal, a way to ask for help without words. And in a restaurant full of people, I made that signal. Only 5 people noticed. But those 5 people saved my life." She gestured to Bear and his brothers. "They didn't know me. They could have ignored what they saw, but they paid attention. They cared. And because of them, I'm safe now. My mom is safe, and other kids are safe because these men helped catch bad people who were hurting children." Mia's voice strengthened. "I want other kids to know. If you need help, ask for it. Use the signal. Tell a teacher. Tell anyone who'll listen. Because there are good people in the world. People who see you. People who care. You just have to be brave enough to reach out." The crowd erupted in applause. There wasn't a dry eye in the venue. Bear felt tears on his own cheeks. After Mia's speech, people approached the Veterans MC table, parents thanking them, survivors sharing their stories, teachers asking for training materials. The impact of one night's intervention had rippled outward. Derek Hammond's trial began 2 months later. He was convicted on 17 charges, including aggravated child abuse, assault, and conspiracy. He received 45 years in prison. The other 11 arrested sanctuary members received similar sentences. Jennifer rebuilt her life with remarkable strength. She started working as an advocate for domestic violence survivors, using her experience to help other women escape abusive situations. Mia thrived. She excelled in school, made friends, joined the soccer team. She'd started a blog with her mother's help, Mia's Voice, where she wrote about her experiences and encouraged other children to speak up about abuse. The Veterans MC maintained a relationship with Mia and Jennifer. They attended Mia's soccer games, celebrated birthdays, stayed present in her life. 2 years after the rescue, Bear received a package. Inside was a drawing. Mia's artwork had improved significantly. The drawing showed 5 motorcycles and a small girl making a hand signal. The title read, "The Day Someone Saw Me." A note accompanied it. "Dear Bear, Hawk, Doc, Wrench, and Preacher, I made this for you. And you saw me when I was invisible. You heard me when I was silent. You saved me when I was lost. I'm going to spend my life helping other kids the way you helped me. Thank you for teaching me that good people exist and that asking for help isn't weakness. It's courage. I love you all." Mia Bear hung the drawing in the Veterans MC Clubhouse, where it remained as a reminder of why they did what they did. This was the mission: seeing people who needed help and choosing to act. 5 years after the rescue, Mia was 13 and thriving. She'd become an advocate for child safety, speaking at schools and conferences. She'd helped train over 10,000 people on identifying children in distress. Jennifer had remarried, a kind man who treated both her and Mia with gentleness and respect. They'd learned what healthy love looked like. The Veterans MC continued their advocacy work. The night they'd recognized Mia's signal had transformed not just her life, but theirs. They'd found purpose beyond their own healing. Bear often thought about that Sunday evening at Rosie's family restaurant. They'd just wanted dinner after a charity ride. Instead, they'd witnessed a silent cry for help and had the training and awareness to recognize it. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't noticed?" Doc asked one evening. "I try not to," Bear admitted. "But yeah, sometimes I wonder. And then I remember that we did notice. We did act. And because of that, Mia's safe. 43 kids are safe. Predators are in prison. That's what matters." "Think we'd do it again?" Wrench asked. "If we saw another signal? Another kid in trouble?" "Without hesitation," Hawk said firmly, and the others nodded agreement. That was the truth of it. They'd spent years fighting wars overseas. They'd struggled to find purpose in civilian life. And then, an 8-year-old girl had made a hand signal in a crowded restaurant, and everything had changed. They'd learned that heroism wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes it was just paying attention when others looked away. Sometimes it was trusting your instincts. Sometimes it was choosing to act when doing nothing would be easier. Mia had asked for help in the only way she could, and 5 veterans, trained to notice threats and protect the vulnerable, had answered that call. Years later, when asked about that night, Bear always gave the same answer. "We didn't do anything special. We just paid attention. We just cared." If more people did that, if everyone watched for those silent signals and chose to act, imagine how many lives could be saved. But to Mia, and to the 43 other children whose lives had changed because of one intervention, it was heroism. It was salvation. It was proof that even in the darkest moments, someone might see you. And sometimes, that someone rides a motorcycle, wears leather, and looks nothing like a traditional hero. Sometimes the people who save you are the ones everyone else is afraid of. The silent signal had been heard. The rescue had succeeded. And the ripples of that one moment continued spreading, saving lives, creating awareness, proving that courage can change the world. The end.